The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Pastor Mike, good afternoon. Mannin Line's open line today through till 1 o'clock. So the floor is yours, whatever you want to talk about. If you were at Tynwald Day yesterday, what did you think of it? The new slimmed down grandstand and everything. And if you were there, I'm guessing you caught the sun because once that wind dropped, it was steamy on the Fairfield and down in the village, the World Village, in the Arboretum. A fantastic day yesterday, and I don't know whether you heard the former Chief Minister and Ramsey MHK, Alan Bell, sharing his thoughts on the current politics with Max Radio. He was on Perspective on Sunday with Phil Gorn and talking about the small number, 5 acts that were promulgated at this year's Tynwald Day ceremony, and also the government's communication strategy. Well, anything else? By all means, text, email, call and WhatsApp. Let's get to the lines, and Bonzo joins us first today. Hi, Bonzo. Oh, no, we've got Bonzo here. I do apologise. Hi, Bonzo.
Oh, hello. Where was I then?
Somewhere in cyberspace, I believe.
Oh, I see. Yes, it's this quantum entanglement thing. You know, I'm somewhere in another galaxy somewhere. But enough of my interplanetary and interstellar thingy. Yes, Alan Bell and his comments on government communication. Well, there was a man sitting in his glass house with his trebuchet throwing rocks, if ever I heard one. For those of us old enough to remember, the Bell Tier years and things like the dependability scandal, for which no one has still been held to account. Over a decade later, and the general slash and burn of the Bell Tier years, I think those comments are a bit rich. However, coming from looking at the present situation, one of the problems, of course, that the government has with communication is that they have very little to communicate. And so they have to resort to various theatrical stunting, such as the great annual Hall of the People conference and the touring We're Pretending to Listening to You exercises, which are simply window dressing that nobody believes, and everyone has a right, quite correctly, not to believe. Simple problems are simply not being addressed, as you can see by the fact that only 5 pieces of legislation were presented for promulgation on the Hill. And this is after now 4 years of the Grand Island Plan living document that we're revising, and we're still busy revising it and actually not doing anything. So people were complaining about, why are there all these private members' bills? Well, it's to give people something to do. Because government in itself is simply not producing the legislation which it should do. Or now it's actually saying that, we're having to cancel large amounts of the legislative programme because now we don't have time. I'm afraid it's a bit of a dog's breakfast from start to finish. But this is generated by a refusal, I think, to accept a few very basic problems. And the central problem, and this will come up in the election, front and centre, is tax. And absolute refusal to accept the idea that those with the broadest shoulders should pay the largest amounts. It doesn't have to be squeezing them until the pips squeak. Nobody's saying people shouldn't be rich, but people should pay a, relatively speaking, fair share. And those in the, certainly in the top 10% of incomes, have enjoyed, a pretty beneficial 30 years. And I think it's now, and many other people I think would agree, it's now time for them in these circumstances for them to pay a little more to make sure that everything runs. And that's not just simply for other people's benefit, that's for their benefit as well, because it ensures that there is a properly running port. It ensures that there's a properly running airport. It ensures that the roads are of a decent standard, and other things which allow them to go about their daily lives and business as much as it allows the man or woman in the street.
It's where you draw the line, though, Bonzo, isn't it? It's where you. I mean, at the moment, although it's nothing to do with us, in the UK they're trying that as well, and it's led to a lot of seriously rich people leaving the UK or leaving London particularly. So we don't quite know. I mean, I can speak as somebody who's not remotely rich, so it won't affect me at all, and I don't have that sort of perspective on how rich you have to be before you don't mind paying a bit more tax. So we're speaking on behalf of people who we don't represent. I don't represent the rich people. I'm guessing you don't represent rich people. So they don't have a spokesperson. So how do we know what it is that they'll stand?
Well, it's not a question, I think, of, why should rich people be asked to pay tax, which is the question you're putting. It is a question of what sort of country, what sort of nation do they want to live in? Do they want to live in a nation with roads and a functioning airport and a functioning port, etc., so they can then enjoy the tax advantages that we can provide and tax competitiveness that we can provide? Or are they just simply concerned with saving, screwing as much tax out of tax saving, etc., as possible?
Well, the tax cap at the moment is what, 220, I think, for an individual, 440 for a jointly assessed couple. Now, is that a fair whack to pay?
How do you mean a fair whack? I mean, that's the tax limit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's on any income. About that, you can be getting 200 million, but you only, as personal income, but you only pay 200,000 tax. Now, I think that's pretty absurd. As I say, it doesn't take, when you compare the offering that we have to the UK, and the UK's offering will only get less attractive.
Yeah.
It's 40% now. And with various things. Now they're kind of determined to keep 40%, but I can see perhaps an additional tax level of 50% being introduced, and then you've got concepts such as some form of wealth taxation coming. And of course they have capital gains and capital transfer. We don't have capital gains tax. We don't have capital transfer tax. We can offer a tax competitive attraction for those people of high income, high net worth in the UK. But we also, and I think they would accept, that in order to have those advantages, that they have to pay a little more than they might otherwise do. But that is still a considerable saving for them. So I think this idea that any thought of raising taxes at the top level will lead to everyone sort of packing their suitcases and hanging on to the skids of helicopters like the evacuation of Saigon is pretty nonsensical. The reason why you can buy lots and lots of houses now for over £500,000 is because people can't regularly get on and off the island to do business. These very basic things have to be sorted. in order for the economy to function. But no, let's not talk about that. Let's have constant protests about wind turbines. Let's go on about 20 miles an hour urban speed limits. Let's go on about really anything except what really needs to be talked about.
Apart from Laurie Hooper, and I've heard Laurie talk about this issue quite a bit, can you think of any other politician who would be open to advocate this?
Well, I would have thought the Manx Labour Party would advocate such things. I think they have advocated them in their manifestos, for example. And the Greens, I think, have as well. But I think there is an increasing realisation amongst those who you might classify as independents of various shapes and forms, and those who might be tempted to stand as independents of various shapes and forms, that it is a question of fundamental issues having to be addressed, and some sort of absolute refusal to address this central issue of taxing, as I say, taxing those who got the most, who've got the biggest shoulders. The wealthy seem to be completely sacred cows on the Isle of Man.
Interesting. Well, as you say, the Isle of Man has an awful lot to offer that the UK doesn't, in that there's very little, there's no street crime, there's very little crime on the Isle of Man. Vehicles tend not to get stolen, so that's a big plus. You're presuming that most people who are high net worth individuals know that. It's just that Jersey offers a better climate. Portugal offers a better climate. Italy, I think, has got a golden visa system that's going now. So we're in a competitive market, Bonzo.
Yes, but the reason that people are here because of elsewhere is not for the weather and the nightlife. It's because it's the nearest tax-competitive jurisdiction to the UK.
Right.
And it's also a place where you can buy property to live in such a tax jurisdiction, whereas you can't do that in Jersey.
Well, unless you have a significant amount of money, no, I do.
Well, unless you have so unless you are hyper rich, and even then, there's going to be the question of there is only so much space in Jersey, in the same way as there's only so much space in Monaco.
Okay, all right. Well, Bonzo,
we have a much more attractive. If we can get things like our communication, our physical communications right with air services and sea services and such, we have, we do have something to offer, but we do have to address fundamentals like how do we finance public services and who do we ask to help finance those public services.
Okay, well, it's all
because it can't be the vast majority of the population.
Okay, well, it's all downhill to the election, obviously, in 14 months' time. And as you say, this is something that, well, money is at the bottom of everything. How you get money, how you get revenue, and how you spend it, and that's taxation is one part of it. Bonzo, I appreciate your call. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks very much. Thanks.
12:20, and it's Mark with us now. Hi, Mark.
All right, Andy, fella, how you doing?
Well, it's a lovely day, isn't it? Just right to be inside.
Do you know, I'm not being funny, but every time you come on the radio and say, what a lovely day, it chucks it down the next day.
Oh, dear.
So can you please stop doing it?
Shut up.
Right.
Yes.
Do you know how you and I seem to think that the Isle of Man is, shall we say, a slightly odd place to live?
In a gorgeous way.
Yeah, but I spotted something the other day that it took me by surprise because I didn't know if I was seeing things or whether or not I was in a parallel universe. What it was is I stopped at the Spar shop in Williston to get a newspaper. I got my newspaper, the Daily Mail, by the way, so don't shout at me. And they're selling Easter eggs.
It's, what is it? The 8th of July.
Yeah, now, have we missed Easter, or is this a precursor for next Easter?
Or is it old stock?
I don't know, to be honest with you. Everything, when I asked the manager what it was, he didn't even realise they were there. He said, somebody must have put them out while I was away. Now, I mean, normally we get the Christmas stock in round about now, don't we, in Tesco's and places like that. And then between Christmas and the New Year, we start getting Easter eggs. Now, I'm getting myself really confused here as to why they're in the shops in July.
I wonder
are
if
they,
anybody...
Are they later, or are they just very, very early?
And which Easter eggs were they? Were they the little ones or the big ones?
No, the big ones.
The big Easter eggs?
Yeah, they were. There was 3 different types of Aero and a Toblerone. I'm quite partial to a Toblerone, so I was going to buy one. Right. But then I thought to myself, no, hang on a minute, am I encouraging something bad here?
Well, check the sell-by date next time you're there, you never know.
It's just, I mean, it's confused me, Andy. I don't mind admitting it. I don't know what's going on anymore.
And we haven't even had Optune A yet, and we've got Easter eggs in Williston.
Exactly. I mean, is everything coming forward? Are we going to be celebrating Christmas at the end of September now? I mean, has the government decided that this is the way forward, and they just haven't told us?
Right. Okay.
All right, my friend. You have a good afternoon.
Thanks for that.
In your hacienda. Bye-bye.
Jolly good. Does anybody know then why are there Easter eggs in the spa in Williston? Andy said, regarding the ceremony, the president's dinner banquet after the ceremony, who pays for it? How much does it cost? Do the attendees pay or do we pay? Don't know, not sure. Can't tell you at the moment. I'm presuming if it's the president's dinner banquet, there will be a budget in there. I heard on the news that phones are going to be tested for the sirens in September. Would it work for the old flip-top phones? Well, it's UK, I think, isn't it? I don't know if it's going to happen here. But millions of phones in the UK will blare out with the sound of a 10-second siren. Part of a drill across to prepare the UK for potential danger. The announcement about the year's test comes as the UK government issues a warning about the UK needing to actively prepare for the possibility of the country coming under direct threat, whatever that means. It's also after the world's been watching the Middle East amid fears of a wider conflict, although there does seem to be moving towards peace. The EAS, the Emergency Alert System, is designed to warn the public if there's a danger to life nearby. When it was last tested across, don't panic. The message that appeared on phones was, this is a test of emergency alerts, a new UK government service that will warn you if there's a life-threatening emergency nearby. In a real emergency, follow the instructions in the alert to keep yourself and others safe. Well, we'll probably ask the Home Affairs whether because obviously we've got rid of our analogue sirens, those World War II sirens that they said cost too much. You can actually buy them on eBay for about 40 quid. But never mind. But I just wonder whether we're going to get the emergency thing on our phones or whether we will. Anyway, I think you get the picture. Howard's on now. Hi, Howard.
Hi, Andy. Just listen to Mark there. He's quite right in what he's saying. I don't know whether it's unique to the Spar shops, but the Spar in Annika, up until virtually the end of June, was selling full-size Easter eggs on display as you walked in the door.
Right.
And they were at the full price. They weren't reduced to nothing. $14.99 for an Easter egg. And I checked them just out of curiosity, and the use-by, sell-by date on them was 2026.
Crikey. So
they weren't out of date, but they're just out of season. And obviously they're trying to milk the Easter festival for all it's worth.
Well, you just wonder whether or not they ordered too many.
Well, they invariably do. You look at when Tesco down there, they had racks and racks of them afterwards, and they were down to £1 a piece just to get rid of the stock. But Spar, apparently, their need is far greater, and they were kept at $14.99 for, I can't remember what they were. They were the full-size eggs anyway. And they were there for weeks and weeks, and that was only couple of 3 weeks at the best ago. So that's from April until now. And they actually had Father Christmas chocolates on there not so long ago for sale. So that's going back a little bit further. And
already?
I think these were last Christmas. It's stock they're finding somewhere and it's going out to the shops to get rid of it.
Right.
But they weren't even reduced as well. They were virtually top price. It's just greed. But I asked one of the staff down there, and they said, oh yes, we went to shift these, and the manager, I'm talking about Easter eggs, we went to shift these and move them and reduce the price. And said, no, put them back and leave them at that price. They were instructed to do that. So that's within the company. It's not to do with the staff. But I don't know, strange enough, you just mentioned about the sirens. And within the last 10 days or fortnight, it was early hours of the morning, I heard sirens. Like, as you say, the old war-type sirens.
Right.
And I heard them, and this was at 1:15 in the morning.
Really?
It woke me up, and it went on for at least 10 minutes, quarter of an hour. But as you rightly say, they removed the sirens from around the island. I've never heard anything more about this. Whether it was it could have been an emergency, and what was Max Reid used to say? Stay in and listen in.
When did you hear the siren then?
Well, it was in the last week or 10 days. And my wife heard it as well. It wasn't just me. I wasn't having one of my loopy hours. But I think it may have been, probably wrong, something to do with the power station.
Wow.
Because we're close enough to the power station for it to be heard. But anybody in closer proximity and they heard it once, must have been wondering what was going on. But there's been absolutely nothing in the news, newspapers, internet, anything.
So it was a siren overnight at about 1:30 in the morning?
1:15. I looked at the clock, 1:15 in the morning.
Right.
And, it was the warning siren that we used to have. So maybe there was something within the power station that had gone astray, awry, and it was rectified within the power station, but nothing's been notified.
Okay. All right. Appreciate that, Howard. Thanks for calling today.
Okay. Take care.
Can
Bye.
anybody tell us this then? 1:15 in the morning in the last week, 10 days, the siren going off somewhere. And if it was heard around Douglas where Howard is, I wonder whether you've heard this. I thought the Home Affairs Department told us they got rid of all the sirens. Remember, there used to be a quarterly test of the siren. But not anymore. Critch dropped me a note, and just to say, from my understanding, way back in 2021 and then 2023, the MHKs voted to put a general 20-mile-per-hour speed limit on all, quote, residential roads, unquote. Exceptions can be made, which is what all this nonsense of the consultation is about. This is the 20-mile-per-hour consultation that's underway in the north now. So it's all down to the definition of a residential road. And the DOI have put in all sorts of other definitions in there. But, for example, places like Wolverhampton, a residential road is a housing estate only. Just a housing estate. A place with houses on it. Not a street that just happens to have a couple of houses by the side, but a housing estate, limited traffic, hardly any HGVs. So the DOI have given themselves a huge job. They've made all sorts of roads, like the whole of Douglas Prom, for example, which they didn't need to. Just take the definition of residential roads as, quote, housing estates, unquote, and all the difficulties just melt away. That's Critch's point of view. And a note in from Tommy. Thank you, Tommy. I wonder if you can contact Tesco management for comment on the staffing issues affecting home deliveries and customer service. This has been going on for some time. I've had 2 non-deliveries in a week. You get phoned and given the option to collect. I declined collection on Friday, but today I decided to try it. Another customer here in the store, and still waiting for my non-delivery to appear 15 minutes now, is complaining about a delivery expected yesterday, but it didn't happen with no communications. I've had comments from the drivers about issues going on. Seems it's a staff shortage at Tesco, sickness, vehicle problems, etc., etc. I've also heard grumbles about deliveries going out from the South store. Is management taking their time addressing these issues, as there doesn't seem to be any competition for their profit on the Isle of Man? I've also just checked again regarding last Friday's non-delivery, as I'd not had any emails showing that it was cancelled and refunded. It shows in the app that it was delivered. So I was charged for zero, plus the extra time it took of doing a shop in the store. I'm phoning customer services now. The staff member said, to say that they can't deliver anything, told me to actually complain to customer services. Honestly, bad service and even more effort expected from the paying customer. I overheard in the store that a colleague had passed away over the weekend, so just so you're aware. So they have had issues over the last 2 years. Any thoughts on this? If you're a Tesco customer, is the home delivery service working as it should? And Juan joins us now. Hi, Juan.
Well, you've done it again, Andy. The best dressed man on the field, the top hat fitted and everything.
Well, it was warm, I tell you. It was warm on that Fairfield.
It got warm. It got warm. You're in competition with Christian Jones for the best shirt he had on last week at the Government Road Show. So you've got a competition between you there for dress. Interesting though. I don't know if it was at Timble Hill or Capitol Hill. It's stingers on the road for cars and roadblocks. I think are the lads worried the fool who were going to come and get them yesterday, do you think?
Well, I saw the big concrete blocks. They didn't put them there until just before, I think. I don't know quite what they were trying to stop.
I don't know what the message was that was sent out, and I've never seen a stingers put across the road to nail car tyres. So I just thought, well, maybe they've been looking at what Trump had done at Capitol Hill for Independence Day and followed suit. I don't know. Just going on to the demographics there yesterday. What did you think, Andy, of the event?
I thought it was good. I love Timble Day. I think it's a mixture of kind of the formal and the ceremonial, and also the Fairfield, where you hear all sorts of vicious gossip.
Well, between that and the Mannin Line, I'm just listening to or looking at Bernie Moffat's comments on the Celtic League page and the attendance actually at the ceremony part, and the apathy there of watching the ceremony, and of course the grandstand was halved in numbers, but the Fairfield was busier than ever. Absolutely packed from an early start, and the Global Village as well. The entertainment was absolutely fantastic. The Homecomers tent at night was great. The Big Train Blues Band and the Ceilidh, absolutely brilliant. But I'm wondering why the ceremony is not attended so much now. The actual watching of the ceremony. Is that down to apathy from the locals, that they don't want to see that anymore, or they've got no faith in the current administration?
Well, the thing is, remember, if you like, I always look at it, take a sort of a long-term view of it. The ceremony is not about the government. The ceremony is about the Isle of Man. I mean, if you like, it's the play. It's a play with different actors. So perhaps the play isn't as interesting as it used to be. I mean, the actors come and go. Some stay for a long time. Some only do a short time. So, but it is a spectacle. And as you say, it may be that maybe lots of people have never been to Timble Day.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. It's our culture and the history of the island, and I don't know whether it's because we've not got brilliant actors in the act at the moment that people are not watching it.
Well, it could, and of course we haven't had a superstar visitor for a long time. We had Princess Anne a couple of years ago, but we haven't had. I remember when he was just Prince Charles, when the Prince of Wales came. It was a very well attended day. We used to have quite prominent politicians who came and attended, and we don't really get those nowadays.
But looking at the drone footage and the amount of people that were there, I mean, I don't think I've missed a Timble in 30-odd years, Andy, so I see the change on the field. And there used to be like 4 deep watching the show right the way up the side of the walkway. And there was gaps there this year along the fencing, and it was a poor turnout to watch that. And that's the point I was getting at, because the Ceilidh at night was absolutely mobbed. So the culture, people are coming there for the culture and the dancing and all that stuff, and the Global Village. It's just the actual ceremony itself. And I'm going to relate it back to last week's roadshow, which on an average probably got 60 to 70 people in per show over 4 nights. But someone like Katie Hopkins can come over, who is doing politics dressed up as comedy and quite cutting, who gets 2 sold-out shows of 200 plus, and is wanting to take the Gaiety or the Villa, which you won't get. But and that's my point here: is the apathy? Is that the train of thought to people now?
Well,
they'd rather go and listen to Katie Hopkins.
It's interesting, and I'd be interested to know the difference between attendances. We've got a benchmark really, and that is 2014. 2014 was the year when social media really took off. after 2014, everything in life has been mirrored by social media. It's been driven by social media. Lots of organizations, only do things that are digital nowadays. So you just wonder whether or not it is that generation of people who are addicted to social media and their machines and their devices that don't go. I was looking carefully. There were lots of families there yesterday, and there were young people there. But as you say, they headed for the global village and the food.
Yes, and very noticeably as well, and this is not, before anyone starts on me whatsoever, a racial comment, but the demographics on the field in the daytime were a lot different than what they were 20 years ago or 30 years ago. A very stark difference in accents of people around, and people enjoying the Fairfield, not the ceremony, but the Fairfield. But a big difference in the nighttime event. It was very Manx and very cultural at the global, at the homecomers tent at night time for the Cayley. Very, very noticeable. And I just try and put the things together to try and get, analyse where we're going and what the problems are with it, Andy.
Yeah. Well, talking of different demographics and different cultures, I went into the global village and I have to say the Ukrainian table was there, and that was very nice. I had some Ukrainian cake. It was lovely.
They've done whoever's organising the Timble now has done a great job. And all the guys that were there, the DIY, that were on point, closing it down afterwards, cleaning up, making sure the traffic was flowing, were all on point. They put on a good show yesterday. I think half the constabulary were there in the morning gathering pace. It genuinely was a good show. The Global Village was great. It's just a pity, and I'm trying to analyse the reason why people are not embracing the ceremony. Yeah. Maybe it is the actors. I don't know.
Well, the thing is that, I reflected yesterday doing the broadcast in the morning and listening to John Moss. It's the only place in the world that it can happen. The only place in the world. It's been going 1,000 years and more. The Tinwald is, it's unique around the world. Some Scandinavians do have a Tingvolla, but we've got ours. And we do an open-air sitting of our Parliament. And it is that combination of, the people dress. Some people like dressing up, some people don't, but they all do it. And they put on a show. As you say, it's interesting to know whether the actual population distinguish between the event and the characters in it. And we'll leave it there. Okay, Jewett.
Cheers, Andy.
Good to hear from you. Look at that time. It's 21 minutes before 1.
Out and about this summer, EVF service stations have everything you need to make the most of it. Hot and cold food, chilled wine and beers, barbecue essentials and more. You can even pick up your lottery tickets at our stations across the island. Fill up, fuel up with Ellen Vannin Fuels. Visit us at evf.co.im. Stocks and offers may vary between locations.
As our loved ones age, they carry not only the memories of the past, but also the uncertainties of the future. Secure tomorrow today with Man Benham's guidance on enduring powers of attorney and more.
I began to struggle with the stairs, but I didn't want to leave our family home. So my daughter told me about Acorn Stair Lifts and their new showroom in Douglas. I was able to try the stair lifts and find the right one for me and the home I love. They were so friendly. The whole process was hassle-free and they offered the whole package from installation to servicing. Choose the island's first choice for stair lifts. Acorn Stair Lifts, South Quay, Douglas.
Call Acorn Stair Lifts now on 672 414 or call into our Douglas showroom.
It's the festival of fun, of music, and so much more. Yes, the Port Erin Beach Festival is back. Brought to you by Conister Bank. On Saturday the 12th and Sunday the 13th of July, there's fun for all the family, even the dog. Take a trip on the motorised tram. Relax with beach yoga. Show off your skills with sandcastle competitions, beach football, and the legendary Scruffs Dog Show. Or take to the water with junior sailing, paddleboarding, aqua bikes, and trips around the bay. Plus live music, food stalls, and much, much more. The Port Erin Beach Festival, 12th to the 13th of July. Support Supported by IFGL and your nation's station, Manx Radio.
Join Kiri Kermode and myself, Simon Clark, this evening here on Manx Radio at 5:30 for Countryside.
On Sunday, I went along to Bolshugle Farm in Baldwin to catch up with the young farmers as they hosted the shearing and stock judging for this year.
And I find out from Charlie Corkle from Mackle whether the rumours are true about a combine seeing out combine and winter barley.
That's all in Countryside tonight here on Manx Radio at 5:30. And don't forget, you can download and subscribe to the podcast for free at manxradio.com.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
19 minutes before 1. David's with us now. Hi, David.
Hi, Andy. I've got a couple of thank yous to send to people, or I don't know them all, but I just want to thank you on behalf of me as an individual in case I get into trouble. Can I just mention a couple of them there? Kell Properties, Opal, Dandara, and the one that was Shell Foundation and so forth. I just want to put to the people out there how much those individuals or the high net worth individuals behind those companies support little things on the island and big things on the island. I'm aware that Kell Properties support the sidecar racing, probably doing the same at their Southern 100. And then Opal's doing a few different things. If you look at their little website there and you look at the ethos of the owner of that company there, loves the Isle of Man, wants to get involved in the Isle of Man, and is doing things to help people out. Dandara are the same, whether you love or hate Dandara, built houses for people to live in, young Manx couples, and also supported a lot of things to do with sport, football, peel, all sorts of things they've done, and provided money. And I just wanted to put that as another thank you for the people. I know maybe some of them, but no, I don't know them all. But there are individuals who live on the island who love the Isle of Man, want to be here for either safety, bring their grandkids up, or want to spend the rest of their lives here. And I just want to thank them. They may not be all listening. I'm sure the government will be listening. And the other one I was going to thank too, Manx Radio, is excellent programmes at the weekend, not the Timmel Day thing. I was going to say Alan Bell and Bernard Moffat. That was an absolute classic.
I loved listening to hear Bernard Moffat talk about Pat Bryson.
You need to get him on. You do need to get him on, and he'll never get a medal. The only time he'll get a medal is probably from the Manx himself, because he won't accept anything. He would never go into politics, and I always remember having a go at him when he was quite forceful. And I said to him, Bernard, you need to go into politics. And he wouldn't kneel or say the oath to the king or queen or whatever. And he was totally Manx. And I'm glad I ever became a TNG member and rubbed up against him and helped him out in a certain way. And he helped me out in a certain way too. And the final thing, to put the thing on Manx Radio really, is the Bee Gees. I couldn't believe listening to all that stuff about what happened in Williston. I'm a Williston boy. And I was probably in the same era. I lived in Timmel Road and they lived in Snaefell Road. Do you know what? I wish I would have played music or could be able to sing. Yes. I may have been in a band, Andy.
I could have seen you in the Bee Gees, David.
I could have been. And you know what it remarked to me was when he said about the bonfires. The Williston gang, there was two gangs in Williston, one at the top of Williston and one at the bottom. And we both had bommies each. Ours was down near Timmel Road, back of the donkey field there, and there was one up near where the Manor Court is now, near the pub there, and there were big bommies, and at night they were kids. You're talking about kids of maybe 7, 8 or 9 or even 10 garden bonfires to make sure they weren't burnt or disappeared. And God, I wish we could go back to the old days, but we can't, can we?
All right.
All right, I want to thank all those millionaires out there. They can find me on my Facebook page and send me some donations. That'd be nice.
Yeah, that's interesting to point out. Lots of high net worth individuals do fund, and a lot of them are under the radar and don't want any word about it. A lot of them give money to the hospice, and of course, Sight Matters, the Old Manx Blind Welfare, got a big donation as well last year. So, well, you. But
I'd like to know, Andy, sometime if your reporters have a look at how many high worth net individuals do we have now? And when us Manxies say to them, well, they could pay a bit more, it'd be just nice to find out how much they actually do. They won't tell us. It'd be nice sometimes if they could say, well, do you realise I spent 100,000 here or 200,000 there? Well, sometimes people spend $1 million.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know what I mean?
All right, appreciate it.
All right, lad.
Thanks for calling today. It's 14 minutes before 1. Somebody has also pointed out to me that the Scheinbergs are never backward in coming forward in donating to charitable causes on the Isle of Man, although they don't obviously many times don't want any credit for it. It's interesting. The whole point about high net worth individuals paying tax, and again, this is something that divides opinion in many places. Certainly in the UK, they're wanting to tax people a lot more, and some of the high net worth individuals have just scarpered, have left, and that's all there is to it. They often employ people. They often, by definition, will have big houses that will need staff, gardeners, cleaners, people who live in often. Some of them have aeroplanes. Some of them have stables and liveries. So that creates work. I just wonder what your thoughts are regarding this. Text, email, call and WhatsApp. I think we've got Barry with us now. Hi, Barry.
Good afternoon, Andy. Hope you're well.
Yeah, fine, thanks.
There's a lot in this. I'm going to try and do this from like a three-way perspective, and I'm not an expert on it, and I'm not going to preach to be, but I want to try and get through it in as little time as we have. But I'm looking at the Isle of Man Courier, 20th of June to the 27th of June. Just to say, I have spoken to the Treasury Minister. I've spoken to Minister Cannon, and I've also spoken to another minister about this one as well. This is to do with that the title is, the Minister defends the decision to strip the self-employed of £10,000 benefit, which I guess that 10,000 means it would be the annual amount. But essentially what this means is that employed person's allowance, which is currently in the Isle of Man paid, I believe, to 950 people. This is quoted from the newspaper. 52 of these people are wholly, I think that's how you say it, are primarily engaged in self-employment. From September the 1st, should this thing go through Tynwald, from September the 1st, there will be no new applications accepted for self-employed people for employed persons allowance. The paper then goes on to describe some individual cases from self-employed people coming from different backgrounds who clearly are going to be very worried as to how they're going to manage to meet the financial commitments moving forward. And I don't know how much you or any of the listeners know about EPA. I didn't know about much about it until very recently, but one of the main criteria or is not the most important part of criteria for this allowance is the fact that a claimant would have to have a child, and they must be in receipt of child benefit. So what I want to say on that really is that that to me is very unfair. It's very unfair because EPA, by its nature, seems to have been a social welfare benefit put in place to almost bridge the gap for people in different circumstances over a fairly short to medium term time period. I mean, clearly, if one of the main parts of the criteria is that children are involved or a child is involved, I guess one of the main reasons why people would need to claim EPA is because they're trying to look after their child or their children. I guess some of these people could be single parents. I guess some of these people could be divorced parents. They could be going through a whole number of different situations. But we're also living, of course, in a world whereby joint parenting is a thing where it's no longer the case whereby one parent takes the child most of the time or pretty much all the time. There's also a thing called co-parenting. And for co-parenting to be successful, it therefore means that there may well be a need for a person, an individual, to claim EPA. And of course, that person could well be self-employed. But the story itself seems to really it's that old saying. It seems to tar everybody with the same brush. The minister in the story, and I guess he was quoted when the Isle of Man newspaper spoke to him, and I know that Manx Radio done a story on this as well. But he seems to be saying that that there is some self-employed people that because they haven't got sort of kind of not up-to-date accounts, but because their income, it could be essentially hard to prove for whatever different reason. He seems to say then that anyone really self-employed, or he's not saying that, he's trying to get out of that one, but I'm going to say it, that there's almost like a tarring with the same brush scenario whereby anyone who's self-employed could, because they may not be able to provide a full rundown of their proof of income, therefore they should not be able to claim EPA. Now that to me is just a nonsense, and that to me, an actual fact, moving on to the third part, flies in the face of the 2017 Equality Act, because that 2017 Equality Act is supposed to be promoting a fair and inclusive society. And it's also really supposed to put to not just private companies, but it's also supposed to mean that public bodies themselves should be treating people equally, and they should also be considering the impact of the decisions on people's rights and opportunities. And I take the view that the Equality Act shouldn't be a separate entity and must never be looked at in a different manner to the actual Social Security Act. Just because the Social Security Act says ABC, it doesn't necessarily mean that whatever the implications of the Equality Act, whether they be DEF, it doesn't mean that the two shouldn't be considered at the same time.
So what do you think should happen now, Barry?
Well, I think nothing should happen. I think the Treasury Minister should back off, and he should leave self-employed people alone, because self-employed people are paying into the system exactly the same as what employed people are. And dare I say it, self-employed people are paying 2 lots of national insurance, they're paying Class 2 and Class 4 on top of their income tax. And if a self-employed person finds him or herself in a situation whereby they need some temporary help, it's not up to the Treasury Minister or Tynwald to turn around and say, well, we're sorry, but now we're saying that because you cannot provide a full set of accounts because we can't justify that or we can't verify that, we're not going to give you anything.
Okay.
Because what they're actually going to do is they're running the risk that they're going to force people to stop working altogether. And the last thing I want to say on this, Andy, because I know you're in a rush, and I appreciate that, but I always appreciate you getting me on. The last thing I want to say to you really is that if there's a problem with a few people self-employed claiming EPA and the government are concerned that these people are claiming when they shouldn't be claiming, they've got officers in there. They should be going out knocking on doors and saying, hang on a minute, you're claiming when you shouldn't be. But not to turn around and put a blanket ban on people that are suffering temporary sort of financial problems.
Okay.
I hope that came across clear enough.
No,
that's all I wanted to say.
No, I appreciate it, Barry, and thanks for making that point for other self-employed people. Thanks for calling today, Barry.
Thank you so much, Andy. Thank you.
6 minutes before 1.
Hello, this is Doug Farragher. In conjunction with Manx Radio, I'd like to invite you to join us and learn something about our native Gaelic tongue, the language of man.
This week only, get a free upgrade to Loganair's Fly Flex Fare. Enjoy a larger 23 kilo hold luggage allowance, increased change flexibility, and collect more Avios, all at no extra cost. T's and C's and exclusions apply. Book by 9th July, travel from 1st August. Booking changes may incur additional fees. Book today at loganair.co.uk.
Spectrum Windows. If your house needs a new look and your windows let in rain, keep those cold breezes out and make it look like new again. Spectrum Windows, Spectrum Windows. Quality through and through. Great work guaranteed to you. Spectrum Windows, Spectrum Windows. Spectrum Windows.
From our castles to our cottages, our museums, and the Great Laxey Wheel. You'll find hidden treasures around every corner when you visit a Manx National Heritage Site. Fill your summer making treasured memories with Manx National Heritage. Sites now open every day. By visiting, you help protect our treasured island for generations to come. Plan your visit today at manxnationalheritage.im.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
And look who's here. It's Mary. Hi, Mary.
Hi there. I just thought I'd try and I don't often come on the Mannin Line these days. I'm a different Mary from Ramsey. I'm a separate one. There's 2 of us, apparently. I'm just raging about the fact Katie Hopkins was here to sold-out crowds for 2 nights, and we can't fill Tynwald Day. And I just wonder, is it something to do with ignorance? that people who come to live here don't understand we have nothing to do with the UK per se, and that we have our own parliament, these people who come here to live, well, they can now actually. Boris Johnson changed it, didn't he? They can still vote in the UK elections, which I think is appalling. I only have one man, one vote, but people who come here to live now can have 2 votes. But, I mean, this woman, she came here, and there was a lot of young people there who thought they'd go for a laugh. This woman who has been banned from most media, radio and TV stations for libel and been made nearly bankrupt because of her poison. And I just find it appalling that she's been promoted by one of our MHKs who should be at home working for his constituents, not for this woman who doesn't seem to realise we have our own government and it's nothing to do with her, and she doesn't understand anything. She was derogatory apparently to Michelle Hayward, and if I was Michelle Hayward, who works hard for a constituent, I'd sue her. And it's just absolutely appalling. Apparently it was full of farmers and how she supports farmers and protests for them, but it's got nothing to do with our farmers. Our farmers never got EU payments, or they pay inheritance tax. So what is she going on about, and what don't people understand? Sorry, I'm fuming.
She's playing to the crowd, obviously, Mary.
I know, but why is this crowd so ignorant?
Okay.
That they don't seem to realise none of what she's saying applies here.
All right.
And it's nothing to do with us and spreading poison.
I appreciate it, Mary. Good to hear from you today.
Okay.
Cheers now.
Bye.
Right, we're back tomorrow with Education, Sport and Culture. Daphne Kane, MHK, the Minister, Sarah Maltby, MHK, the Member, and Paul Crane, MLC, the Member. Education, Sport and Culture tomorrow. Any thoughts? Get in touch. In the meantime, thanks to Chris on the phones. Have a great Tuesday.
WINT.